Thank you, Mr. President. And in the beginning, I would like to congratulate you for assuming presidency of the Security Council for this month. I would also like to thank Ms. Souda for her briefing and thank her and her team for all the efforts they have been doing in this unprecedented times. I would like to express also our condolences to all your countries and the countries of the world with the loss of lives during this pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, achieving justice over all Libyan territories is a responsibility that falls within Libyan sovereignty and national jurisdiction. However, we reiterate our continued cooperation with the International Criminal Court in accordance and with relevant Security Council resolutions as a complementing role, which has been highlighted by Ms. Souda on many occasions and various reports. However, we still believe in the mandate of the national judiciary system to prosecute all of the accused in accordance with Libyan Penal Code that reflects Libya's sovereignty over its territory and citizens. The Libyan judiciary is further committed to ensure a fair and impartial trial for all those wanted, including the fugitives and the outlaws. The national judiciary system is determined to prosecute all those committed any type of violations on Libyan soil, and these crimes shall not be subject to statute of limitations. In this regard, we would like to emphasize that the Libyan judiciary system monitors all violations and crimes, in particular, those committed by war criminal Khalifa Haftar since the attack on Tripoli and its outskirts on 4th of April 2019. In addition to the numerous violations he committed in other cities of Libya, including but not limited to kidnapping, killing and public executions, as in Benghazi in the east, and the Merzak massacre in the south, and the massacre on the military school students in Tripoli in the west, in addition to many others. In this regard, the military prosecutor in Libya issued a warrant for the arrest of a number of criminals and outlaws. First and foremost is war criminal Khalifa Haftar and other leaders under his command. We also wish to inform you that my government is finalizing its third report issued by the Joint Committee for Monitoring and Documenting Human Rights Violations in accordance with GNA Decree 735/2019, and this report will be shared with the ICC and the Security Council soon. As stated in Ms. Bensouda's briefing today, which covers the past 6 months and her previous 17th and 18th reports, Haftar's forces were explicitly accused of numerous war crimes, from airstrikes, indiscriminate bombing of civilians and civilian facilities, to other serious violations. The latest of those crimes, for example, is the bombardment on Al-Hadba Hospital in Tripoli, 7th of April, assigned to treat COVID-19 patients, which caused the closure of the hospital several times and resulted in terrifying patients and medical staff. Adding to that, shutdown of water, gas, and electricity supplies to the city. These violations were firmly condemned by the Secretary General of the United Nations and many other countries, which comes at a time when the entire world is facing anxiety and panic due to this pandemic, to add another tragedy to the existing crisis faced by civilians in various sectors of life in my country. As for the concerns expressed in the report on the situation of illegal migrants, we would like to emphasize that my government has taken a number of swift measures to protect them, expediting their transfer from conflict areas, and is cooperating with specialized UN agencies to monitor their living and medical conditions. However, this may not be sufficient enough, since Haftar and his militias deliberately target their detention centers, as what happened previously by an airstrike on Tajura Center last July 2019, killing 53 migrants and injuring 130, as mentioned in ICC last report. Ms. Souda, we thank you for your reports and findings in an effort to uncover war crimes and crimes against humanity in Libya, and to hold the perpetrators accountable, as you always said. But the question on the table now is, what's next? What are you going to do after all these findings and evidence that you have listed today and in previous reports? What is ICC waiting for to hold accountable all those responsible for these violations that was indicated today and have been committed by the so-called National Army? By the way, I agree with you, as you named it. It's a militia that calls itself a national army. And in this regard, I really request all of you in the Security Council and ICC, for legal purposes, not to call it the National LNA or Libyan National Army, because that's not even the name they call themselves. So now, who's responsible? According to Article 28 of the Rome Statute, I quote, "A military commander or person effectively acting as a military commander shall be criminally responsible for crimes with the jurisdiction of the court committed by forces under his or her effective command and control, or effective authority and control as the case may be, as a result of his or her failure to exercise control properly over such forces." We might ask, for example, what is the difference between your swift actions taken against Mahmoud al-Warfalli for his crimes according to the evidence you found, who is, by the way, being promoted by Haftar and currently fighting in the outskirts of Tripoli? So what's the difference between what Warfalli has been doing and Haftar massive crimes against humanity and human rights violations, targeting and killing thousands of innocent people, where many of these crimes he and his commanders publicly committed and admitted? According to Article 7 of the Rome Statute, I also quote, "Crimes against humanity means any of the following acts when committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population, with the knowledge of attack, as murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, or forcible transfer of population." End quote. And this is only some of Haftar's crimes that were committed, as stated in your report. And another question that awaits an answer: what about the countries and officials outside Libya who support and finance these grave violations? Isn't this a joint responsibility? What about the use of mercenaries from several nationalities to conduct these violations, as clearly stated by name in the Security Council Sanctions Committee reports? What about the countries that finance and provide arms contributing to these human rights violations? Ms. Bensouda, ICC isn't a human rights organization to just list violations and crimes. ICC has the mandate to investigate and prosecute. So based on the above and my questions, we hope that ICC will work in cooperation with the Security Council, sanctions, and panel of experts committees, so the evidence and findings are consistent, and that the accused are clearly and explicitly identified to hold them all accountable. Ladies and gentlemen, although this is an ICC briefing, I would like to remind this Council of its responsibilities towards my country, and the importance of taking a firm stance in favor of justice and accountability. As you all are aware, the aggressor continues his attacks despite his false announcement of a humanitarian truce days ago, where immediately after that announcement, he deliberately targeted civilians in the center of Tripoli and other areas, as he did, for example, in the area of Znata, killing and wounding dozens, ignoring and disregarding your efforts and previous initiatives and calls, as in Moscow and Berlin and others. Furthermore, he announced a week ago his coup on the political agreement and all the legitimate state institutions, and proclaimed himself the ultimate military ruler and tyrant of the country in an outdated, farcical performance. Hence, following the recent events, is any of you still hesitant to consider him an obstructionist and spoiler to the peace process and the resolutions of this Council? Is anyone still hesitant to name and shame this aggressor and war criminal by name? When will he be held accountable? Until now, I'm hearing from all of you generic words, as if the person who is committing these attacks and these violations and massive violations is just a ghost. Nobody is naming him, even today. Ladies and gentlemen, we still reserve our legitimate right for self-defense and protect our people, and to strike all sorts of aggressors and outlaws who act as a threat to our civilians. After more than 1 year, it's obvious that this warlord military adventure has proven its failure, and the world witnessed the beginning of cleansing and curing the country from the real pandemic that is threatening peace and stability in Libya and the region. Thanks to our Libyan National Army and our valiant forces and the resilience of our people. Meanwhile, we were and still are extending our arms to all Libyans across the country who have embraced the path of peace, stability, and efforts toward a democratic civil state. Thank you.
Very much. There are no more